Please welcome our guest musicians today, Amy and Randy Crafton. Bienvenidos todos. Welcome everyone to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. Estamos contentos de estar juntos. We are glad to be together. Este es un lugar donde podemos traer todo nuestro ser y ser aceptados tal como somos, con amor y amistad. This is a place where we can bring our whole selves and be accepted as we are, with love and friendship. Nos gusta decir, ven como eres. Esperamos que no te vayas así. We like to say, come as you are. We hope you don't leave that way. Me llamo Katy Canepa y voy a servir como líder de servicio esta mañana. My name is Katy Canepa, and I'm going to be our service leader this morning. After the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected and with others in the main room for discussion. And those of you here at the Aldea can join us for coffee and cookies and lots of information after the service. Después del servicio, vamos a ofrecer café y galletas. Now, we have a number of visitors with us today, and if you're comfortable doing so, would you stand when I read your name and where you're from so that we can recognize you and greet you personally after the service? We have Jennifer Morin from San Miguel de Allende. Welcome. And Nancy Movger from, I can't read it, I'm sorry, but where are you? Thank you. And we have Jesse Wilson from Owen Sound, Canada. Welcome. And Lee Ogden from Meaford, Ontario, Canada. Welcome. And Frank, Paul, and Liz McKenna from Canada. Welcome. And if we have any other visitors here today, would you please stand so that we can see who you are and greet you afterwards over at coffee? Anybody we didn't call? Welcome. And on Zoom, if you are visiting, please write your name and where you're from in the chat box so we can say hello. Now, 2 things to know. This coming Saturday at 5 p.m., the Latin American Relief Fund, which supports ABBA House, is going to be screening our own Judy Jackson's multi-award-winning documentary, Where Can We Live in Peace? The Migrant Crisis. Please go. Tell all of your friends who might be interested. The information is being posted in the chat box right now, and there are posters available at the information table after the service. And while you're at the information table, please go and learn about our Social Justice Foundation benefit. This event is going to be on March 20th at 4 p.m. at Casa de la Cultura, and tickets will be available after the service. And please, as always, go visit our website, UUFSMA.org, to see previous services on our YouTube channel, various events and small groups that are sponsored by the fellowship this week, as well as information on how to become a member, and we hope you do. Now, I am delighted to welcome our 2 guest ministers today. Anya and Scott Sammler-Michael are visiting us from their home congregation in Montclair, New Jersey, where they are co-ministers. And they were joined by Amy and Randy Crafton from Montclair, who are wonderful musicians and composers and will provide our music today. Please read about all of their backgrounds and good works in your order of service. What you're not going to read is that Rev Anya was Director of Religious Education in White Plains, New York, some decades ago when our son was in UU Sunday School there with her. So keeping that tradition, our children who live in Montclair now will begin Sunday school in your congregation this fall. And I'm just thrilled that you're getting the next generation of our family. So please welcome Rev Anya and Rev Scott.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Reverend Scott. It's a pleasure beyond measure to be invited to lead worship here in this space. And so I want to say, some of you may recall when we visited last January, we came and had a lovely time. And, you know, I knew where to find Reverend Tom. So I'm like, Reverend Tom, we'd love to come and be guest speakers here sometime. And so it was, we really felt a warm welcome in our time coming here. And, you know, and last January when we came, it was such a great surprise to see our good friend Louise Green leading worship, whom we knew when we worked in the DC area. And then, of course, I've learned since then with talking to so many of your great volunteers that Craig Rubano, Wayne Arneson, and Kathleen Rollins, Amanda Poppy, Ned Wright, all folks whom we know and love have been here. So we feel like we have big shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you know that this is a magic place? Yes. Of course you know that this is a magic place. But I have realized since being here what the magic is, at least the magic that I experience. This place, this town, is a place where metaphors come to life, where ideas that are just in the mind get lived in the world. What we're bringing today is a service called A Religion for One World, and what I have experienced since being among you, but also just in this town, is that the values that I hold dear in my religion, in my congregation, are lived here many, 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 many miles away, and not only by the Unitarian Universalists, but by this entire community. So the idea that there could be a religion for one world is not only an idea, it is lived, it is possible, and it is here.
Amen. And as you'll hear in the sermon, a religion from one world doesn't mean we all do the same thing in exactly the same way. And remember when people told us we were going to all speak Esperanza by the year 2000, right? No, it's not that. You'll learn more of that later. And I really have to extend a really warm welcome to our close friends and collaborators, Randy and Amy Crafton. Amazingly gifted and talented musicians and composers. Randy has helped me so many times in my own recording adventures, which, if you're interested in that, they are both on this CD that you can take home with you. Not the music you're hearing today, but Anya wrote a song on this, and so we're really proud of that work together.
This is the commercial break.
This is the commercial break. But anyway, I just really am blessed to be here and to share all of our gifts with you.
Yes. And now Amy will come forward to share a little bit about the song that we will sing next as we light our chalice.
Yes.
It's such a... Lo siento mucho. Good morning, everyone. Yo soy Amy. Pronouns ella, ellas. See, I can learn. Randy and I have been members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Montclair for about 14 years now. We originally came to the UU Montclair when our twins were quite young, looking for a bit of a community and spiritual home. With both our spiritual backgrounds, it was imperative that it was a liberal, open spiritual community. Come as you are, and don't leave as you were. And we were particularly attracted to this particular congregation because they have a strong history in religious education. When I found out that the religious education goes through all generations, first of all, adults and youngsters, and as well as they have a very particular program in the 8th grade where it's called Visiting Faiths, where they would bring our children to mosques, synagogues, temples, Catholic churches, all sorts of different things, where it was actually an education. And each individual was encouraged to incorporate what they learned and be able to have that as part of their own package of spirituality and toolkit. And then when I further learned that our congregation was founded by a group of very strong women and mothers who wanted in 1897 to have a liberal spiritual home for their children. It had been integrated from the very start, and all souls were welcome. It was a beautiful place, and to that they've come through fires, they've come through all sorts of different crazy things that all long-standing congregations come through. But this song that we have for you this morning, we call our chalice lighting song. And it was written particularly for our children's choir to sing when occasionally the chalice is lit at every service, but when the children's choir sings occasionally. And it was welcomed by the adults too. So that's, again, another opportunity where the children have led our congregation. So this we call the chalice lighting song. We invite you to sing with us. I'll play the melody first, and then I will sing it once, and then we'll go from there. Sometimes this song is quite useful because it can be used in building community because it's effective as a round, but today we'll just keep it as it is.
If you like to rise when you sing, feel free.
words are, if Reverend Scott, if you would join me and everyone else. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another, to love one another. Again, please. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another, to love one another. Last time on your own. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open to love one another, to love one another. We did it. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, and please remain standing. And now, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join together in reciting this fellowship's unique covenant. This is our promise that we aspire to of how to be in relation to each other and the larger world. I will lead us first in English, and then Miguel Angel will lead us in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Now, let's settle and take a breath and feel each other's presence as we share our joys and concerns that are in our hearts. For each, Rev Anya will light a candle indicating that that thought, that person is held by all of us here and on Zoom. In the future, to share a joy or concern, just email our minister, Tom Rosiello, during the week, or write something on a card before the service, or type it into the Zoom chat now. Our first candle is one of joy for Jean Harvey's birthday this week. Is Jean? I don't know. And another of joy for Jeannie Seward McGee, who on Monday celebrates her continuation day, as her teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, would say. And from Joan Wolfe and the Sangha of the Heart, a candle of joy and gratitude for the wonderful support this fellowship has given them since 2020. Although they are not meeting weekly on Zoom anymore, there will be occasional days of mindfulness and their plan for the future. And a candle of huge congratulations for Bill Wilkinson, who received the Farley Wheelwright 2023 Citizen of the Year Award from Midday Rotary. This was for extraordinary commitment to improving the lives of Indigenous communities around San Miguel. And we light another candle for Jane Wilkinson for all of her similar commitment and work. And a candle of celebration for Judy Jackson's film being shown and our excitement, looking forward to seeing it on Saturday. Now, we light a candle of support for the many of us who have recently contracted COVID and wish them a speedy recovery. So please be careful. And a candle of remembrance for Judy Holden, who passed away this week. Judy was a neighbor of many UUs at Chilo's apartments, and she attended our services over the last year, and she will be missed. And I have some cards from this morning. From Jenny, a candle of joy. Tengo mi TOEFL. I have my TOEFL degree. Okay, and that's a duplicate. And our concerns extend beyond this community to all of our sisters and brothers. So we are not forgetting them, and we light our blue and yellow candle again for all those civilians and soldiers on all sides still suffering from the long war in Ukraine. And we light our red candle of compassion for all those suffering the ongoing horror in the Middle East. Both the Israelis killed on October 7th and taken hostage, and the Palestinians struggling to survive, especially the children. And our last candle and a moment of silence for all those who are holding unspoken names and situations in their hearts, in this room and on Zoom.
Continue with me in this space of reverence, this place for meditation, this place for prayer, this space that we create to be our full selves here with one another and with the depth of our being. And we begin today with gratitude. It is another day that we have been given. Thank you for this day and for the sunlight and for the faces of friends and strangers around us. Thank you for the air that we breathe and this beauty that surrounds us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we continue with a moment of praise. Praise for the incredible gift of life. Praise for the bounty that we find ourselves with when we find ourselves with one another. Praise for, well, I'm gonna say it, for Amy, who nearly broke her hand last night. and is still playing beautifully today. Praise for our bodies and the miracle that they give us of recovery. And we also have a space here in our meditation and our prayer for asking for what we need. Let us ask today for greater peace. For greater peace through our blue and yellow and red candles. For greater peace for our hearts and for all those who woke this morning aching from grief. We ask for peace and comfort. We ask for the spaces that we find for praise to be gifted to all who mourn, who are hungry, who are in need. And we ask especially today for all of us who have something that we can give, may we find a way to give it so that this world can become more whole and even more holy by our offerings. Amen. In the musical meditation that follows, we invite you to come forward and light a candle of remembrance, of hope, as you are moved. Today's reading is adapted from A Religion for One World, written in 1964 by the Reverend Kenneth Leo Patton. Patton was perhaps the most prolific religious humanist of the 20th century, whose religious convictions were squarely pluralist and universalist. Several thousands of years of human culture, Patton says, have passed, and humanity has yet to create a religion for a united human family. Instead, the human scene is decorated with a multitude of faiths. The major divisions break up into hundreds of small sects. Some of these religions believe that they have created a universal religion. Buddhism moved out of its native India into most of Asia and the East Indies. Islam probed deep into Africa, into Asia, and beyond. Christianity, in its many forms, has attempted to convert the world to the gospel of its Savior. None of these religions is likely to become the religion for one world. The practical approach that we need is to tackle the problem of creating a religion for one world on an experiential and experimental way. We need to model the religion for one world. We need to create a universal religion in miniature. And Patton shares, its success at first will not be measurable by its popularity.
I'm the oldest of five, and I don't like to do much alone, in case you haven't figured that out. Thank you. And thanks for come to me. Thank you. So this service inspired by that book, A Religion for One World by Kenneth Patton. I learned a little about Ken Patton when I served as the intern at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood in New Jersey. Patton had longed to compose that religion for a united human family. And that sounds like universalism, yes? Now, universalism refers to universal salvation, the theological concept claiming that all souls will be saved, reunited with divinity after death, all souls. And this concept is ancient, but it had its first Western expression in Christianity. It became part of our faith's heritage, a spiritual innovation, an imaginative dare that quickly transcended its Christian roots. The most thorough Universalist book was composed by a man named Hosea Ballou, who famously claimed in 1805 that because sin is finite, the punishment for sin is also finite. Duh. Ballou claims God would be a cruel monster to punish people forever for transgressions made in a moment's lapse on this earthly plane, where we have incomplete knowledge, unaware of all of the possible consequences of our deeds. Ballou taught that earthly misery is one reason we often rightfully become angry with God. Now, Ballou lived in a world where death lurked around every corner. In 1805, medical knowledge was in its infancy. Nearly 1 out of 2 children did not make it to their 5th birthday in 1805. 1 out of 2. So what happened after death needed a good explanation. And an eternal torment for innocent children to those who embrace the loving God, well, that was not good enough, and I don't think it is still. Amidst the pervasiveness of such misery, Ballou responded by claiming that God's love knows no limits. He rejected the prevailing occupation of his time, and sadly the prevailing occupation of our own, on hellfire and damnation. Life was hard. The holy understands and welcomes us home gladly. Universalists, that's us, claim all people shall be saved, reunited with the divine, no matter what our misdeeds. In 1905, Reverend Mino Savage, serving the community church in New York, he wrote this about universalism's logic. We do not believe it is possible for a human soul to ultimately be lost. Why? Because we believe in God. God either can save all souls or he cannot. If God can and will not, then he is not God. If he would like to but cannot, he is still not God, right? So God is under an infinite obligation to God's own will to see to it that all souls are reconciled. Divine love knows no limits. This is our heritage. Universalism, despite this beautiful idea, remains shunned and feared by many Christian denominations. And frankly, by many people who pretend they know theology but do not. And still, every day, more and more Christians proclaim they have discovered universalism. Consider these folks. Evangelist Bob Bell proclaimed he believed the Bible supports universal salvation, and he was promptly ejected from his pulpit. Orthodox theologian David Bentley Hart, he wrote a bestseller titled, All Souls Shall Be Saved. His faith continues to try and silence him. Bishop Carlton Pearson, the heir apparent of none other than Oral Roberts' Christian empire, Pearson was cast out when he shared his vision of universal salvation after losing his son to a tragic illness and having a dream that there must be a better vision of God. So what did he do? He moved his flock to the Unitarian church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, down the street from where he already was. And the name of that church, All Souls. More people of faith, lay and professional, have begun to deny the existence of some ghastly eternal torture chamber for the majority of humankind. And it is a good thing they're doing that. Indeed, people reading the Bible with open hearts throughout the ages have understood the biblical stories as parables, metaphor, cautionary tales, not a blueprint for the cosmic order. We who embrace universalism have been freed of the need to cling to meaningless proclamations of ages past simply because some preacher told us so. Thank God. Over time, universalism spawned a cry for a religion for one world. And this is where Ken Patton enters our scene. Besides being a religious innovator, Patton was a justice warrior, an embodied white ally dedicated to force America, in his words, to live into the beauty and promise of its pluralism and its creeds. He witnessed firsthand the racism that Black Americans faced. In 1947, Look magazine asked Patton to explore the extent of racial prejudice in Chicago by attempting to integrate restaurants, hotels, country clubs, real estate. Patton was repeatedly turned away when he claimed to be black or when accompanied by people of color. He saw it firsthand. And in response to this embodied experience of America's original sin, Patton declared, "I want to resign from the white race." And for this comment, he received death threats for the remainder of his life, more than 50 years. Patton intuited that we must see that we are all in this thing together, that there is but one race, the human race. To assist in that project, Patton knew that religion had to change. Faith must uphold as sacred truth the oneness of humankind and evolve past tribalism and racism and all the other isms that create fear and hatred. So he endeavored to craft this religion for one world. Patton saw that no revealed historical religion, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, that none of them can serve as the religion for all of the world. Once we base a faith on one people, on one revelation, on one location, that appeal will never be universal. We needed something new, truly global. So as commonplace as this may seem to us in this room, this was a brand new idea in the mid-20th century. The search for a universal religion is noble, Patton taught, so long as we do it with a radical openness to critique, to change, to input from all the corners of the globe. So Patton, he traveled the world at his own expense to collect religious artifacts to experience as much different worship as he possibly could. A truly universal religion, he said, has the widest possible circle. The membership is nothing short of all people, of all souls. You'll hear that again, all souls. And yes, that includes even those who transgress. A religion for one world proclaims all have dignity. That covenant and care we must extend to all. Patton shares some parameters for a religion for one world. Universalism must expand, he writes, to include these new universals: universal brotherhood, universal peace, universal health, freedom, security, understanding. We are committed to the truth known and to be known, and therefore we feel no hesitancy in demanding that our ideals and concepts must grow to meet the necessities not just of our times, but of later times. We must be willing to be changed by the new people and ideas we encounter. And he concludes this piece: nothing we believe now should stand as a barrier for what we must believe when we learn more. Nothing we believe now should stand as a barrier for what we must believe upon new revelation. Our focus has to be worldwide. Patton boldly challenges that we must do something never before done in human history: expand our loyalty, our belonging to a group as various and scattered and messy as the entire human race. Open up our eyes, he says. All souls means all. And cannot such sage advice help us build a more beloved community, a more peaceful world? Now, Ken Patton ran for a while an experimental congregation in Boston. This was known as the Charles Street Meeting House. My late colleague Mark Ward shares about that church. From its outward appearances, it was fairly run-of-the-mill. It was just off Boston Common. But once you walked up the stairs into the sanctuary, it was plain this was no ordinary place. Reminds me of this place. The pews there, which once marched row on row facing a pulpit, were now situated in concentric circles gathered around a polar projection of the globe in the middle. The speaker's lectern was just inside the circle of pews. That was all that remained of a pulpit, while on the pulpit platform were a large bookcase full of scriptures and the world's religious text and poetry. And what I liked the most was in that lectern, he had built a control center. He could control the sound and the lights and all that stuff. A pulpit as a control booth. Ward continues, what first captured your attention before the unusual room arrangement was a massive mural, some 25 feet high, painted by Patton himself, of the Andromeda Galaxy. That's on one side. And on the other side was a depiction of the atom. Scattered along the front of the church balcony were some 65 images of the world's religions. In alcoves underneath those balconies were glass cases containing religious art from all over the world. It was like nothing else. And at the time when Boston religion, even among the liberals, was a little bit stodgy, quiet and boring, it was definitely radical. This started in 1949 and went to 1964. He was so committed to an openness of new ideas and new sources that the hymnals that he had were loose leaf binders. So they could take some old things out that didn't work anymore and put some new things in. Now, Ken Patton was very clear that a religion for one world was different from a single faith for everybody. He accepted that no single religious pathway would ever be embraced by every person worldwide. A religion for one world meant to invite and accept all the best teaching, art, and ritual enshrining the diversity of humanity, to emphasize the relatively new notion in 1949 that we were all part of just one race, the human race. The planet has become a geographical unity, he writes. People living everywhere are my people. Nothing human is alien to me. Nothing human is alien to me. Patton begins a religion for one world while America still has legal segregation, state-sponsored apartheid. By 1950, advances in communication and travel had literally brought the world closer together. And in 1950, the world had just witnessed the cruelty of the Holocaust, the murderous purges of Soviet Russia, the threat of global extinction by nuclear war. Indeed, Hiroshima remains one of the greatest catalysts for conceiving of humankind as one. This is wisdom wrought from destruction. I wonder, how many of you participated in nuclear war safety drills as children? Raise your hand if you did. I'm 61. I did too. As today our children are taught fear with mass shooting drills, my first day of first grade, we were taught to duck and cover. Open up the locker, place your face inside and kiss your goodbye. My entire generation was indoctrinated with nuclear terror and an unhinged fear and hatred of people not like me. Thank God there were movements like ours and men like Patton, so people of conscience and compassion worldwide could conclude that we better begin to reframe humanity's mission and proclaim that we have but one world, y'all. This big blue marvel just going around the sun. It's all we got. And if we do not want to blow ourselves up in macabre dances of nationalism and militancy, wow, we better learn to see everyone around the world as our sibling, deserving of care and protection This was an elevation in consciousness, now sadly too often forgotten. Beloveds, I know you know this intellectually. We have but one world, and this way of seeing the world as one is too often demeaned by our so-called leaders, is it not, to this very day? Why? Well, you know why. Because too many people cannot overcome their greed and their tribalism. And because of this, universalism, this one world notion, remains feared as, and this is what many religious denominations call us, the most dangerous heresy of our time. This lust for power, people who want impunity for their cruelty as they subjugate those they want to think are inferior, often solely for profit. These are the dangerous ideas creating death and destruction everywhere on this planet as we speak today. But let us remember, beliefs have consequences, right? If you believe others will be punished for an eternity by a God who favors you, it might become easier to justify cruelty towards them while they're still here on earth, right? Remember Sheriff Joe Arpaio, that fascist Arizonan who built prisons in the 120-degree desert in Maricopa County? This is what he said. Oh, these criminals are all going to hell. I'm just giving them a taste, preparing them for their eternal fate. They should thank me. Beliefs have consequences. The cruelty one justifies if one believes destructive lies about damnation from God is nearly immeasurable. As much as the theology of damnation has scant evidence in Scripture, and it does not have hardly any evidence in Scripture whatsoever, as much as it confuses the divine will with lurid tales of torture, we know that that thinking is most dangerous when it's applied to this world. Indeed, is it not the most ultimate control device? If I can stand here as a supposed man of God and say to you, do what I say or you will burn forever, what more unholy power can anyone wield? Beloveds, I put to you that this theology is abuse of the highest order. It is spiritual violence. But what? What if we believe that everyone could one day find themselves in union with everyone else, with the holy of our understanding, where all are seen as worthy of human and divine love, where none are rejected or lost? This is the radical claim of our faith, one we must repeat until we hear our own civic leaders proclaim it. Despite our rejection of the hideous doctrine of hellfire, you know, it can be difficult to want to love everybody. Am I wrong? To apply universalist love to all the human beings we meet, you know, I mean, and I'm not just talking about the knuckleheads, because there's some of them out there. The thieves, the murderers, and the rapists, the corporate villains ransacking entire nations for profit, politicians hell-bent on justifying any infamy, denying whole classes of people their rights. We are beset in our day with the unhinged delusions of insurrectionists and traitors, climate change deniers, seeking to wield control over their fellow citizens, even if it means butchery or genocide or pollution or mass incarceration. Beliefs have consequences. We know this is wrong. We have known it is wrong our whole lives, and we must preach against these lies every day, everywhere. Universalists, of course, demand that criminals do be punished, just not forever. So how do we walk through a troubled world with some sense of universal love for all humankind, no matter how horrible some of our fellow human beings may act? I know it's not easy. We all have to figure that out for ourselves. And this is why we talk about it in worship. It's why we do this on Sunday morning. We gather to affirm one another in our quests to be the best that we possibly can, to improve our moral reasoning, to inspire ethical imagination, to love without condition, to demand emotional maturity and social relevance, to be present to one another's elation, sorrow, and confusion. Congregations exist. This place exists because spiritual disciplines are extremely difficult. They're exertions of courage and sustained effort over lifetimes and centuries. Together, we build communities intended to stretch beyond individual notions of what God is or what God is not, reaching beyond our individual understandings of the truth, widening the circle, not so others will be changed and made more like us, so that we can be changed by their particularity, by their gifts. This vision, in part shared by Ken Patton, that we should craft a religion for one world, remains a call to action. True religion aims to share and defend the human search for the values, rituals, and perspectives that make life glad and beautiful and good and just. A religion for one world does not seek to make everyone pray the same. It honors healthy paths to peace and truth and love, conditioning us to recognize diversity as destiny, as a good, as beautiful, as necessary. What it means, all souls means all souls, no exceptions. Amen. As we prepare for the offering, please ponder in your hearts and share after the service. How can we create a faith that honors all souls?
Unitarian Universalism holds a grand vision of one world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is not a reality, but the vision is what moves us beyond ourselves and our narrow perspectives of daily life. We embrace the vision every time we commit our time, our energy, our resources to sustain and grow the life and mission of this fellowship. May we give in love and hope. The offering will now be taken and very gratefully received.
and they are received by this fellowship with love. I'm going to invite you to remain seated for our hymn, Blue Boat Home, so you can see the words as we sing. Blue Boat Home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my swift companions, now kindred pilgrim soul, making our way by the lights of the heaven in a beautiful blue boat home. Thank you. We improvised. So, beloveds, God is under an infinite obligation to God's own self to see to it that all souls are reconciled. Nothing we believe should stand as a barrier for what we must believe. All souls means all souls. We're all cruise ship here. We're all crew here on Spaceship Earth, this big blue marble. For some reason, it becomes too easy to forget that. So let us compose together liturgy, music, theology, stories, politics, and a faith, reminding us daily that I am my sibling's keeper, that what affects one affects all. Thank
you. Y'all want to do the third verse? Introducing Randy Crafton. Is it possible to put it back up on the screen? There it is.
I realize great winds urging me on, great the infinite sea before me. Sing my sky, my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor hope, for have I known the wide universe in the ocean I travel. And the earth is my blue old home.
So isn't it interesting that we don't know what we miss until we miss it? There's gratitude in action. So the big takeaway I hear from Reverend Scott's presentation today is that we must be willing to change. And for me, that was really a big step. I came from a Protestant background, and when I heard this doxology with new words, my head just spun off. So today we want to share with you something that really changed my spirituality and thinking in a very simple way. This was the Old 100th from the, I have it written down, and I'm sure you all know, but it's the Genevan Psalter of 1551. And the words were changed. My first time at the UU in Montclair. And they sing these words, "Go well and safely on your way. Go well and safely through your day. Our peace and love we send with you in all the things we say and do." And again, because the children lead our congregation in many, many ways, this was sung to them as they were leaving for the RE program in the middle of the service. And I thought, whoa, that's wild. And how incredibly beautiful. And I found this written on a plaque in a beautiful frame, and I bought it and I put it in our kitchen. And come to find out, these words were written by the previous minister who was called to the UUCM, Universal Congregation at Montclair, before Reverends Anya and Reverend Scott. His name was Charlie Ortman. Some of you may know him. But anyway, so we'd like to share this with you, and this is yet another thing that the UUCM, we'd like to leave with you as a piece of us so we can all grow together. Does anybody need the melody first? We all good? Okay. Go well and safely on your way. Go well and safely through your day. Our peace and love we send with you in all the things we say and do. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Fellowship of San Miguel. Thank you to Miguel and to Diego and to Diana for setting up. You guys have an amazing, amazing staff here, and we'll all see you at coffee hour.